I'm James Bruce, you're watching Tabletop Dungeon, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the CMON cooperative horror miniatures game Cthulhu, Death May Die. Wait, Death May Die? What? Before we start, let me just say that I have no previous experience in the whole Cthulhu mythos other than it's that kind of scary tentacle guy that makes you go crazy. So that wasn't my primary reason for backing this game on Kickstarter. And I apologize in advance if I pronounce something wrong. My main reason for getting this was that A, I'm a huge CMON fan, as you can probably see from my shelves, and I thought, you know, horror is something distinctly lacking in my collection. Other than that, I love playing cooperative games with my wife. We're not so much into competitive, but really love cooperative sort of dungeon crawling stuff. So this seemed like an ideal fit. Now, in terms of my gaming experience, at least, this seemed to be quite unique, although I'm sure there'll be someone down in the comments saying, well, actually, this is a remake of some particular game I've never heard of. For the purposes of this review, I should also say that I haven't actually taken any of the game components or missions or anything from the Kickstarter Extras Unspeakable box that you see here. I did want my review to be completely based on the sort of retail package that you'd be buying in the shops and none of the Kickstarter extras. The only thing I did take out of it were these plastic character trays, which just stop your little markers from falling off. Still, those don't affect gameplay in any way, so I haven't played any of the missions with any of the extra monsters or extra characters that you find in this box, but we will talk briefly about them later. As with all of my reviews, I'll be breaking this into two different sections, one about gameplay and rules, and then one on just my opinions. So if you know how to play the game, you can skip straight ahead to my opinions on the timestamps listed on screen now. Because this is pretty unique, the gameplay stuff will probably take a bit longer than normal. So Cthulhu, Death May Die is a cooperative semi-narrative horror miniatures game from CMON Inc., which should play in around 90 minutes to 1.5 hours, and it's for 1 to 5 players. The core gameplay consists of just 6 different missions, but each of which contains a unique set of components and different actions that you can take during that game. So each mission is very unique. It's not just a different map layout. I will, of course, only be showing you things from mission 1 to avoid spoilers. However, know that there are 6 missions in total, and each one contains some different cardboard chits, a different set of cards for items that you can discover or companions, a different set of Mythos cards which push the game forward in terms of elder summoning and the enemy movements, as well as some unique cardboard components and a card which describes the unique actions that you can take in that particular level. Now, despite the inclusion of sort of boxes that you unlock and different components for each level, it's not a legacy game. You will keep all of the components, place them back in the box, and then you can play them again next time. For the first mission of Blasphemous Alchemy, the box contains some extra fire tokens because this level is all about fire, and some lab equipment. And on this mission, the unique actions that you can take are to extinguish a fire or destroy equipment. And each mission, again, is going to have its own 2 unique actions that you can take, as well as your character's standard options. There's also a setup card detailing the board and where to place everything, as well as a little introduction paragraph of story text. Now, before you begin a game, you'll also need to select which Elder One you're going to fight that story. There are 2 included in the box. There's Hasta and Cthulhu, and again, each of those is pretty much unique in terms of the gameplay that it adds. The Elder Ones also include their own set of Mythos cards, so to generate your Mythos card deck for that particular mission, you're going to take the cards that you get from the mission box, as well as the cards that you get from the Elder One that you're fighting, shuffle them together, and that's what creates your Mythos deck for that game. Finally, you'll want to select your characters. If you're playing solo, it's really up to you how many you use, but the manual suggests 2. It's a co-op game though, so feel free to divvy up 5 characters between everyone, just play 1 each, or take on multiple roles if you're up for it. You don't need to scale the game in any particular way because the enemy sort of moves forward after everyone's turn. So it really doesn't matter if you play with 2 or 5 players, you should get roughly the same sort of game. Take your mini, put a coloured ring on it, and then take the appropriate tentacle markers, placing them at the start of your sanity track, on the first stress level, the first health level, and at the level 1 of each of your character's special abilities. Now, each character has one unique ability listed on the top and 2 others that are sort of shared with some other characters. There are 10 characters included with the base game, so there's a good selection to choose from. Also, make sure to deal a psychosis card to each character. Now, these cards detail what happens when you reach key points on the sanity track. In turn, each of your characters will then run through a series of phases, the first of which is to take 3 actions. Now, these can either be the unique actions that are listed on that story card, or they can be from a standard set as follows. You can run up to 3 spaces. Spaces are fairly easy to understand on the board. They're basically delineated by rooms or doors, that sort of thing. A large corridor, for instance, is one distinct space. If you try to run away from a cultist or a monster, they will follow you unless you have some particular skill. And if you run away or through fire, you will get burned. So you'll need to place the same number of fire tokens as you've run away from onto your character board and then deal with those at the end of the turn. Note that you can always spend 1 stress to move an extra space. You can also attack enemies in your space or in the space next to you if you have a particular skill called Marksman. You do this by making a roll of 3 black tentacle dice, plus any bonus green dice that you have. Any exclamation marks that you roll indicate a success or 1 damage. Use these damage tokens to indicate partial damage if you don't completely kill an enemy. However, any tentacles that you roll push you a little bit further up the sanity track. At any point when you're asked to make a roll, either for attack, defense, or any other reason, you can always opt to re-roll at the cost of 1 stress per dice. Finally, you can rest, but only if you're not in the same space as an enemy. Reduce your wounds and/or stress by 3 points in any combination you like. If during any roll you hit one of those special points on your insanity track, your psychosis will trigger and your insanity loss stops at that point. It doesn't matter if you would have taken 5 points of insanity. If you only needed 1 to push you up to the next level, you just stop there and ignore the rest, and then you do whatever your psychosis is. Once you hit that point, you also get to upgrade one of your character's skills. So pick which one you want, push it on to the next level, and see what the additional benefit is. In addition, if you've reached one of these sanity points which have a green dice symbol listed beneath it, from now on, whenever you make a roll, you will add in 1 or more green dice. Another symbol you'll find on the dice are these stars or elder signs, I think they are. Now, these are sort of special symbols which don't really count unless you have a particular skill or unless the card lists them as counting for something. Generally, you would just ignore them. Once you've taken your 3 actions, you're next going to draw a Mythos card. And this is really going to vary. There's some story elements on there, but more often than not, you're going to find that it says one particular enemy type moves towards you and then summon something at a particular gate. Next, if you're in a safe space, you can search and draw a discovery card, which will either be an item or a companion, usually with a sentence or 2 of flavor text. If you're not in a safe space, then any enemies in the same space as you will all attack you. Refer to their details up on the main game board, where it will tell you what attack dice they roll with and any special effects they have. Finally, you'll want to check for any end of turn effects that may apply. These may either be from the Elder One at whatever stage they are, or it might be because you're on fire, in which case you need to roll to see what damage it does to you. Lastly, check the Mythos discard pile. If you see 3 of the red summoning symbols, then the Elder One advances on the summoning ritual track. Take the discarded Mythos cards, put them back in the deck and reshuffle it. Then see what effects apply when the Elder One advances. Once the Elder One reaches this red part of the track, the figure is summoned to the board and the cardboard chit remains on the track. If you've disrupted the ritual by completing the goal listed on the story card, you can begin to damage him. If not, he can't be attacked until you've disrupted that ritual, so hurry up and get it done. The ritual continues though every time you find yourself with 3 summoning symbols in the Mythos discard pile, and if it ever reaches the end of the track, well, it's game over. When the ritual is disrupted for the first time, you'll reveal the stage 1 card, but don't get rid of the other Elder card. It stays in effect for the rest of the game and any attack dice listed are cumulative. When you've disrupted the ritual and attacked the Elder One and done the damage listed here in the top right, it's still not over because there's 3 stages of their life. So again, reveal the next card and keep the previous one to the side, still in play. It's only after defeating it for a 3rd time that you actually win the game. Now, after you've done that full turn sequence of events, play proceeds to the next investigator. There is no specific separate turn for enemies, rather they act on every player's turn through attacking if you're in the same space and or through the actions directed on the Mythos card. Alright, so with the rules explanation out of the way, let's get on with my thoughts about Cthulhu, Death May Die. So there are some great narrative elements that can naturally arise out of the game, and they don't come from reading text on a card. Instead, they just sort of naturally develop by the combination of items and elements and characters. In our first game, I played a pyromaniac little girl who quickly found a whiskey bottle and decided to de-stress by drinking it all. She was accompanied by an obsessive-compulsive nun. Now, we were quickly defeated by Cthulhu once he was summoned, mainly due to our lack of experience, but also because I didn't really put the fires out, I was just playing with them. In the next game, I kept the same character, but this time she had a psychosis that meant that she lashed out at everyone around her. Now, I took an almighty gamble by running through a horde of enemies, pulling them all with me, and hoping that I would roll just enough tentacles to send me insane, at which point I would have killed every single one of them in one turn. Unfortunately, luck was not on my side. I didn't roll a single tentacle, my attack fizzled out, and then I died immediately. It's a game that really lends itself naturally to you creating your own personal narratives every single game, and that's great because the game itself, the introduction cards, they really offer very little in the way of narrative themselves. I really found myself wanting some end of story text for each different mission. Perhaps one of a success and a failure state. Something that I could read out to just finish the game off. And for me, that's probably one of the most disappointing elements of the game, particularly because I'm not that familiar with the whole Cthulhu story. Cthulhu, Death May Die is a game of utter frustration because even with luck on your side, even if it's a blood moon, and even if you take the perfect upgrade path throughout the game and run everything perfectly as it should be to solve this almighty puzzle, you could still lose anyway. The Elder One himself at first seems pretty harmless. Their attack dice aren't that bad really, and there's only one of them after all. But once you get through the first stage and then you have effects that happen anyway at the end of each turn, the attack dice are cumulative, difficulty is ramped up to 11 very, very quickly. In terms of replayability, especially for a structured sort of narrative game like this, there's a surprisingly large amount of it. Right from the start, of course, you've got those 2 different Elder Ones. Personally, I thought Hastur is a little bit easier than Cthulhu, but probably depends on your playstyle. Each scenario, of course, has a whole different set of Mythos cards, entirely unique actions that can be done that game, and different items to discover. Each character has a unique skill, which can again dramatically change how you play the game if you play it to your advantage. And each character is going to get a unique psychosis card, which determines what happens when they go insane. Now, the downside to this replayability is that it could also be called variability in terms of difficulty and experiences that you're going to have with the game. Some of the psychosis cards that are dealt are actually beneficial, like the masochism one, which means you can heal stress if you've taken damage. Some, however, are downright terrible, and some are again, highly variable, like the one that causes you to lash out at everyone around you. Great if you're surrounded by enemies, not so great if you're surrounded by teammates. In one game, I slaughtered 2 other characters in this way, which was pretty depressing. So the thing is, I really don't like this game. I really hate how difficult it is and how I just can't get my head around it. Playing with 2 characters was brutally difficult, and every time we tried, it was just utter frustration. We couldn't see a way forward. I honestly came away from each session feeling more frustrated at the game than having enjoyed it. It just felt like a waste of time to be defeated so easily, and I don't think we were playing particularly badly. But every so often, you just get a really bad combination of characters, psychosis cards, mythos cards. The game is just so random, too random. Some of the mythos cards are pretty much harmless, and if you get a series of those, then you're pretty much set for the game. On the other hand, you could be really unlucky and be drawing out a summoning symbol every single turn, in which case the Elder One is rapidly going to come onto the board, everyone's going to get slaughtered, and you're going to go insane and lose the game. I don't mind difficult games when it's a thing that I can solve, that I can overcome, that I can learn to be better with. But when it's got nothing to do with my actions and it's just pure chance, that really annoys me. Playing with 4 characters rather than 2 makes the game a little bit easier, perhaps because you have those additional unique skills to take advantage of, but even then I'd still describe it as brutally difficult. Then there's logical inconsistencies in the cards that you draw and the stage of the game that you're at. Perhaps it says you can do this each turn if you do something, but that no longer applies. So does the whole card not apply, or do you apply it anyway, but with no negative effects? There's a lot of examples of logical inconsistencies and bits where having random cards interacting with other random cards just doesn't make sense. The character upgrades feel like you should be able to build a powerful engine, but then the game throws so much randomness at you that they don't really apply. You can never really fully make use of them, and they're rendered pointless. But it's not just dying in the game because you've taken so many wounds from enemies. It's dying because you've got some mythos card that says you die. It's dying because someone else has triggered their psychosis and automatically caused you 2 wounds, and that pushes you over the edge and you're dead. Oh, and it's not just even wounds, it's the gradual process of going crazy just because there's a card that says you need to do it, or because the Elder One's on the board and now everyone does it every single turn. I do like the unique psychosis idea, but none of them really feel balanced. And it feels like from the start of the game, you might be dealt a bad hand. More than anything, it is just absolutely a maddening game to play. It is literally driving me insane. Oh, hang on a minute. Maybe that's the point. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this box, the unspeakable box, which I'm going to speak about, of Kickstarter exclusive goodies, which will never be available again. Now, just to be clear, I've reviewed this game without touching any of these components yet. However, I did want to talk about it because it seems like one of the most egregious examples of CMON's Kickstarter exclusive content that I've seen yet. Of course, there's the usual absurdly large collection of extra characters to choose from, and some new unique Elder Ones. The nature of this game means that these Elder Ones will create entirely new and varied gameplay, with their different set of mythos cards, the different allies and extra components that they bring. And then you've got extra missions as well, no less than 3. Now, I don't know what these play like, but given the relatively low number of missions, 6, in the core box, this does feel a bit like deliberately locking content out of the core box that perhaps should have been in there from the start. And 2 of these aren't even just the slimline sort of boxes that you get in the main game. They have entirely new miniatures in them too. Really, you are missing out on a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope this has helped you decide if Cthulhu Death May Die is right for you. For what it's worth, I'm going to keep hold of the game and perhaps try mixing in some of the extra Kickstarter exclusive bits, see if that changes anything, because I am a bit of a masochist like that. If you did enjoy this review, please hit the like button. It really does help small channels like this, and consider subscribing for more occasional board game reviews. If you didn't like this review, well then hit me up in the comments and tell me why. I try to respond to all comments, whether positive or negative. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.